Want to live in Europe with just passive income? Portugal. Beautiful beaches, amazing wine, incredible weather, and you only need 920 euros a month? Here's the thing though.
The Portugal D7 visa is still one of the easiest paths to European residency in 2026.
But there are some major changes you absolutely need to know about if you're planning to apply this year. In this video, I'm breaking down everything. What's changed, the exact income requirements, the entire application process, and whether this is actually still the right visa for you. So let's get into it. The benefits are pretty solid. You get to live, work, and study in Portugal. You can travel visa-free across the entire Schengen area, which is 29 European countries. There's a clear path to Portuguese citizenship down the line. You get access to Portugal's healthcare and education systems. You can bring your family with you. And honestly, it's one of Europe's lowest cost residency options when you compare it to other countries. There's no age limit either, so whether you're 25 or 75, if you have the income requirements met, you can apply. Alright, here's what's different in 2026, and you really need to pay attention to these three major updates because they affect everyone. First, the income requirements are higher now. Portugal increased its minimum wage to 920 euros per month in 2026, which means the D7 income requirements went up proportionally. For the main applicants, you now need 920 euros per month, which works out to 1,140 euros per year. If you're bringing a spouse or a dependent parent, you need an additional 460 euros per month, which is 50% more. For each dependent child under 18, you need an additional 276 euros per month, which is 30%. So let's say you're a family of 4 with 2 adults and 2 kids, you'd need 1,932 euros per month total. On top of that monthly income, there's also a savings requirement. You need to show at least 12 months worth of income sitting in a Portuguese bank account. So that's a minimum of 11,040 euros for a single applicant. Some immigration lawyers are now recommending you show 24 months to be extra safe and avoid any potential delays or rejections. The second big change is about the citizenship timeline, and this one's huge. Portugal's parliament approved a reform that increases the residence requirement for nationality from 5 years to 10 years for most applicants. Under the old rule, you could apply for Portuguese citizenship after just 5 years of legal residence. Under the new proposed rule, you have to wait 10 years, although there's an exception where EU nationals and citizens of Portuguese-speaking countries only need 7 years. Now, this law still needs presidential review and it might get amended, but if you're specifically targeting Portuguese citizenship as your end goal, you should plan for a much longer timeline now. The third change is about residency tracking, and Portugal is getting much stricter about this. They now have the EU entry-exit system that automatically tracks your movements in and out of the country. You actually have to live in Portugal to keep your D7 status. You cannot be absent for more than 6 consecutive months at any time. You also cannot be absent for more than 8 months total during your first 2-year permit period. You must physically spend at least 16 months in Portugal during those first 2 years. So if you are planning to just get a residency card and then disappear back to the US or the UK or wherever you're from, the D7 really isn't for you anymore. Portugal is seriously cracking down on this kind of thing. You actually have to live in Portugal to keep your D7 status. You cannot be absent for more than 6 consecutive months at any time. Let's get really specific about what you actually need to qualify for this visa. On the financial side, you need passive income, and there are specific sources that qualify. Pensions work, whether there are government pensions, private pensions, or employer pensions. Rental income from properties you own qualifies. Dividends from stocks or other investments are good. If you earn royalties as an author, musician, or content creator, that works. Interest from bank deposits counts. Even Social Security payments from your home country are acceptable. What you need to prove is that you have monthly passive income of at least 920 euros. You need bank statements showing at least 11,040 euros in savings sitting in a Portuguese bank. The income must come from outside Portugal. not from Portuguese sources. And it must be stable and regular, not just one-time payments or sporadic income. Beyond the financial requirements, there are other things you need. You need a valid passport with at least 6 months of validity remaining. You need a clean criminal record from your home country. You need proof of accommodation in Portugal, either a rental agreement or a property deed if you bought something. You need private health insurance that covers you in Portugal. You need a Portuguese tax number, which is called a NIF. And you need to write a cover letter explaining why you want to move to Portugal and what your plans are. Now, there are some people who can't apply at all. If you're already an EU, EEA, or Swiss citizen, you don't need this visa because you already have the right to live in Portugal. Anyone under 18 can't be the main applicant, though they can come as dependents. And if you're planning to work actively in Portugal for a Portuguese company or clients, you should be looking at the D8 Digital Nomad visa instead, not the D7. Here's exactly how the application process works, step by step. The first thing you need to do before anything else is get your NIF, which is your Portuguese tax number. You can do this remotely by hiring a representative in Portugal, or you can do it in person if you visit Portugal and go to a tax office. This usually takes about 1 to 2 weeks to process. Once you have your NIF, you need to open a Portuguese bank account. You'll need to deposit at least 11,040 euros if you're a single applicant, or more if you're bringing family. Some banks like Activo Bank or Millennium BCP allow you to do this remotely, but others require you to visit a branch in person, so check with the specific bank. Next, you need to secure accommodation in Portugal. You can either rent or buy property. There's no minimum value required. You could rent a small studio apartment if you want. You just need to have a long-term lease agreement for at least 12 months, or a property deed if you bought something. Then you start gathering all your documents. You need your passport and passport photos. You need a criminal background check from your home country, and it needs to be issued within 3 to 6 months of your application. You need proof of your passive income, like pension letters, rental contracts, or dividend statements. You need several months of bank statements showing consistent deposits. You need proof of health insurance that covers Portugal. You need your accommodation proof, whether that's a lease or deed, and you need that cover letter explaining your plans. Once everything is ready, you submit your application at your local Portuguese consulate or VFS center. You'll need to schedule an appointment and you'll pay an application fee, which varies by country but is usually around 80 to 90 euros. The timeline for approval is typically 60 to 90 days, though it can take longer depending on which consulate you're applying through and how busy they are. When your visa is approved, you get a 4-month entry visa. This is really important. You must travel to Portugal within these 120 days. Don't delay this because if you miss that window, you'll have to start over. After you arrive in Portugal, you then apply for your residence permit at AIMA, which is the Agency for Integration, Migrations, and Asylum. This is what gives you your actual 2-year residence card. After those first 2 years, you renew for another 3 years. After 5 years total of legal residence, you can apply for permanent residence. And then after 10 years under the new proposed rules, you can finally apply for Portuguese citizenship if that's your goal. Let's talk about what this is actually going to cost you in real money. For the initial costs, getting your NIF application done is anywhere from 0 to 50 euros if you do it yourself, but up to 200 euros if you use a representative service. Opening a bank account costs 0 to 50 euros depending on the bank. Your accommodation deposit is going to be 1 to 2 months rent, and this varies wildly depending on where you choose to live. You might pay 500 euros a month for a place in a smaller town, or 1,500 euros or more in Lisbon or Porto. Health insurance costs about 50 to 150 euros per month depending on your age and coverage. The visa application fee itself is 80 to 90 euros. Getting all your documents translated and apostilled will run you about 200 to 500 euros. And if you hire an immigration lawyer, which is optional but honestly recommended, you're looking at 1,000 to 3,000 euros for their services. For ongoing costs, you've got your rent or property tax if you bought something. You'll need to keep paying health insurance until you qualify for public health care in Portugal. There are residence permit renewal fees every 2 to 3 years. And of course, there's just a general cost of living in Portugal, which is actually lower than most of Europe, but still a real expense. If you add it all up, your total startup estimate is somewhere between 3,000 and 6,000 euros, plus your accommodation deposit, plus that first year savings requirement of 11,040 euros that needs to sit in your Portuguese bank account. Another common mistake is not having enough documented savings. Just showing the monthly income isn't enough anymore. You need those 12 to 24 months of savings sitting in a Portuguese bank with clear documentation showing where that money came from. Skipping legal help is another one people regret. Yes, you can technically do this yourself, but immigration lawyers know exactly what AMA wants to see, and they can save you from costly mistakes. Spending maybe 2,000 euros on a lawyer now can save you from having to redo your entire application later. Ignoring the physical presence requirement is a huge one, especially now that they're tracking everything automatically. You cannot treat this as a golden visa where you just show up once a year. You actually have to live in Portugal for at least 16 months during your first 2 years. People also underestimate Portuguese bureaucracy. Things move slowly here. Applications take longer than you expect. Document requirements can seem arbitrary. Bank appointments might take weeks to schedule. Build in extra time for everything. And finally, people forget about taxes. Just because you have passive income doesn't mean you don't have to deal with Portuguese taxes. Portugal has the NHR program, the non-habitual resident program, which can give you significant tax benefits. But you need to apply for it within your first year of residency. Talk to a tax advisor about this because it can save you a ton of money. So with all these changes, is the D7 still actually worth pursuing in 2026? Honestly, yes, for the right person. If you're a retiree with a stable pension, this is still one of the best deals in Europe. If you have genuine passive income from investments or rental properties, and you actually want to live in Portugal long-term, not just collect a residency card, then absolutely it's worth it. If you're okay with the 10-year timeline to citizenship, and you're planning to really commit to living there, then go for it. But it's not worth it if you're trying to work remotely full-time and treat this like a digital nomad visa. That's what the D8 is for. It's not worth it if you want a golden visa situation where you barely visit the country. Those days are over with the new tracking systems. And it's not worth it if you're on a tight budget and stressed about meeting the income requirements. Yes, 920 euros a month is relatively low compared to other European visas, but when you factor in the savings requirement, the application costs, actually living in Portugal, and all the bureaucracy involved, it adds up quickly. Portugal is an amazing country with incredible quality of life, low cost of living compared to Western Europe, beautiful weather, great food, and friendly people. But you need to go into this with realistic expectations. The D7 process takes time. It requires genuine financial resources, and you actually have to commit to living there, not just visiting occasionally. Alright, that's everything you need to know about the Portugal D7 Visa in 2026. If you found this helpful, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps the algorithm show this to more people who need it. Drop a comment below if you have any questions or if you're currently going through the D7 process yourself. I'd love to hear about your experience. And subscribe if you want more content about moving abroad, different visa options, and living in Europe. I'll link some helpful resources in the description, including immigration lawyers I recommend and banks that work with D7 applicants. Thanks for watching, and good luck with your Portugal journey.